This year. Musically, we have a treat this morning. Mr. Graebert is going to accompany Colin Aponte. The two of them are going to perform Introduction to Tarantella by Pablo de Sarasate. You should know that the last time Colin Aponte performed this was just a few days ago. Although he recorded it back in November, but it was aired just a few days ago. He has an audience of 500. When this was on the radio, he had an audience of 500,000. He was chosen by NPR to perform on a show called From the Top. So we're going to hear that same tune today, so please welcome Mr. Graebert and Mr. Aponte.
Colin, thank you so much. That's a showpiece, as you can tell. It's designed to show what the violin is capable of when the violinist knows what he's doing. And Mr. Graebert, you were pretty busy on the piano as well. Nice job. It's a wonderful way to kick off our second semester. Welcome, everybody. We have been starting our semesters at John Bapst with a convocation since about 2008, I think it was, that an English teacher, Mr. Nara, stood up and gave the first of these convocations. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. I do want to say, because our speaker is part of the international program of the school, that we have among us some new students. And some of you have met them already. Some of you are about to meet them in classes. I hope you'll give them a warm welcome, explain how lunch works, explain where things are. We have, I think, 14 new students from 8 different countries. So big welcome to those of you this morning who are here for your first day at John Bapst. It's great to have you here. And many of those students will meet among their teachers this morning, Mr. Petito. So David Petito is in his 5th year here at John Bapst. He's not only the ESL teacher here, he's the ESL, English as a Second Language department here. So he's his own boss. And when you're in that situation, I suppose it means that, like our musicians a minute ago, you need to know what you're doing. We were very fortunate 5 years ago to have someone apply to John Bapst who had a long and deep background in teaching English to speakers of other languages. Actually, that field is so big, I could just about guarantee that somewhere in this audience of 540 plus students, somewhere in this audience is somebody who will be a teacher of English to speakers of other languages. It's bound to happen. There are a number of us on the faculty who have done this in our career, either part-time or here and there, and then we have Mr. Petito. Mr. Petito is from Washington, D.C. He went to Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. If you don't know Dickinson, Dickinson has a reputation for being one of the premier places in America to study languages. And so there he had formal study of languages and also of teaching English to people for whom it's not the first language. He was a student abroad himself. He taught in Ecuador. He taught back in his home city of Washington, D.C., taught adults. He taught at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is pretty cool. And when we met Mr. Petito, it was via Skype because he was teaching English in a school in Qingdao, China, which is in Shandong province, a major East Coast city. And so, of course, it was natural that Mr. Petito was headed from Qingdao to another major East Coast city, Bangor. And he now lives in an even smaller East Coast city, Belfast, Maine. And it's my great pleasure to welcome him to the microphone this morning. Please welcome David Petito.
Good morning, students, staff, faculty, people. First, welcome to all of our new students joining us this semester from near and far. I hope you know how excited we are to have you here at John Bapst. I've met many of you already, and I'm positive you'll be incredible additions to our school community. To the student body at large, welcome back to a new semester, a new year, and a new decade. To all of you, many of whom are still wondering, wait, who is this person and what does he actually do around here? Let me formally introduce myself. I'm David Petito, ESL teacher and person you see in the hall but will almost certainly never have in class. If you never happen to learn my name by now, I'll clue you in on something. Most of the students who I teach every day do not know my name very well either. About half of my students refer to me as Mr. Potato, and a few students called me Mr. Reeves well into the second quarter, which means half of my students think I'm a potato, and several of them have insulted Mr. Reeves greatly, and you owe him a heartfelt apology. The truth is, I will probably not have the privilege of teaching most of you, or even share an experience much greater than just a passing hello in the hallway. So I don't have much trust built up with the vast majority of you to inspire you to go out and change the world. But I would like to talk to you today about why I feel it's incredibly important for each and every one of you to branch out, try new things, and get involved here in our community, both inside these walls and out. This is my 5th year at John Bapst, and I absolutely love being in this building every single week but 2. 1 week was last week, midterms, and the other is finals week. We probably all share that sentiment, but for completely different reasons. This building just feels different during test weeks. Last week, you walk in the hall after tests are let out, and you might as well be in a bus station at 2 a.m. Closed doors, empty classrooms, this place seems deserted. What happened? 2 weeks ago, this place was buzzing. At 1:50, afternoon announcements would go on for minutes, giving instructions for sports teams and announcements for club meetings. Outside, students jumping onto a bus to go skiing, track members jogging through the hallways. Leaving the building, I'd shut my door to room 204, and Mr. Dudley's room next door was so busy you'd think it was a trading floor on Wall Street. Mrs. Grover's room was a history classroom 1 minute, but it's a full-on yoga studio the next. How did that happen? And just as I'm about to open the door outside, there's almost always a cello player or a violin player or a piano player down in the music wing, perfecting a piece they've been practicing. Even at the end of the long school day, this building gets loud. All of you are really loud. But not last week. Last week, you could hear a pin drop. Or, more precisely, you could actually hear the shutter click on the student's camera set up in the stairwell that's doing the time-lapse of the gym construction across the street. I could never actually hear that camera until last week. But it was nice to know that even as quiet as it got around here, someone was still working on a really awesome project. Students, you do this. You make this building come alive. It's your curiosity and commitment and willingness to do what you do when you don't have to because you want to be here for a sport, a club, a musical, or an event you volunteered for. For a lot of you, maybe you haven't jumped in quite yet. Maybe you're ready to go home after school, and maybe you have to. I understand. But if you're simply reluctant, if you're just wondering what is the worst thing that could happen when I show up for an extra lesson, a tryout, a club, or an outing, the worst thing, most times, is going to be boredom. Teachers, students, everybody is afraid they're going to waste their time after they go through the trouble of showing up. Then why bother? Someone once said, 80% of life is just showing up. It's easier to stay home than to go out. It's easier to power down than it is to power through. But if you don't show up, you'll never know where you'll find that one thing that keeps you going, that drives you, that makes you wake up in the morning if you don't even bother to look. I'm here, you're here. You showed up today. So let's try to make the last 20% count. So to that end, I'd like to share with you 2 observations from my own life about how stepping outside of your comfort zone is easier than you might think, and how what you do after 150 can be just as important as what happens before it. Now this goes out to not only new students, but also to those of you on the fence getting involved here at John Bapst as well. If you step outside of your comfort zone will quickly catch up to you. Trying something new is easier than you might think, and believe me, you're never too far behind everybody else. Now I'd like a show of hands. How many of you played a sport in grade school or middle school? Okay, a lot. How many of you competed in a robotics tournament or a cyber defense tournament in middle school or high school? Okay. A few, a little bit less so, right? How many of you represented a country in a Model UN conference in grade school or middle school? Numbers still getting smaller. With the exception of sports or music, most offerings at the high school level or college level might be 100% new to you, and you might not even know where to start. But look around you. You're in good company. Most of us are beginners too. Michael Scott once said, that Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Truer words of wisdom have never been stolen. You won't know if you don't try. Now in my life, I've traveled to almost 50 countries, visiting every continent but 2. I've lived and backpacked abroad for a little over 4 years. 2 years in Ecuador, 1 in China, and several summers cobbled together in Europe, South and Central America, Vietnam and Southeast Asia, New Zealand, and India. That's a lot of packing a bag. That's a lot of time wedged into a seat that's way too small in an airport, and that's a lot of hoping all day, every day that I don't lose my passport, which I've done several times. That's a lot of time outside of my comfort zone. The first time I left the U.S. was to study abroad in Quito, Ecuador when I was in 7th grade, a few years before most high school or college students have the chance to. But at any age, I promise you that first time will always stand out the most. I remember that first plane trip, eyes wide open, unable to sleep or sit still. What's it going to be like? Is it pronounced hola or hola? Am I going to make friends? Do they have Lunchables there? Is this going to be the worst decision I've ever made? Let me answer some of those questions. First, yes, it's hola. Second, yes, you're going to make friends, many times lifelong ones. You're probably not going to have Lunchables. They'll have something better. Traveling to a new country is going to be different and awesome and exciting and new. It was a fantastic decision. You just never ever know it at the time. In that first year, living in a country far from my own, in a city built on a volcano no less, I couldn't see the big picture, even from up there. Every day was never ending, and every conversation in Spanish was terrifying. Every word or sound that came out of my mouth was wrong. Listening to classmates talk, or teachers teach, or coaches coach was exhausting. I was never going to learn Spanish. I was dead tired just trying to get through the school day. My host family, 3 brothers and an older sister, were my lifeline. But not because they let me hibernate as soon as I got home or shielded me from having to use another language. When I wanted to go home and read in my room, they would generously cancel our ride home so we could stay and play soccer until after dark. When I wanted to watch TV, they'd force me out to the park to play basketball all day. Now I know without a doubt that Senora Molina can teach you Spanish much faster than I can, but let me tell you, it's amazing how much of the language you can pick up while getting a soccer ball kicked through your legs. My host family pushed me to get out there and motivated me to keep trying even when I thought I couldn't. I didn't realize until months after I had returned that my Spanish was conversational. I was almost fluent. Soccer I was still awful at. But hey, I was much more comfortable living in another country. Years later, after graduating from college, I returned to Ecuador to live for another year, a goal I set for myself after coming back from the 7th grade. I slept the whole plane ride down. I landed, stayed at a friend's house, navigated finding a job and an apartment, all in Spanish no less. Since then, I've made it a real goal to travel whenever I can. It's my life's passion. Maybe you're thinking, sure, that works for you, but it'll never work for me. I know I won't like it. To that, I say, just show up. Step outside of your comfort zone. You don't have to travel to do this. Just challenge yourself. Pick something you think you're interested in. A club, a volunteer opportunity, a team, an instrument, or a hobby. Find the door and walk right in. Remember, you're in good company. Give it a try. Very quickly, your comfort zone will expand and catch up with you. I promise. Now, I think setting goals and striving to do your best is important. No one around here will tell you differently. But let me give you my second insight into picking up something new. Just enjoying something can very often be as important as being the best at something. If you find something you like, that's enough. Trust me. Find something you enjoy, and you very well might spend the rest of your life trying to get better at it. Pablo Picasso said, "All children are born artists. The problem is how to remain an artist after they've grown up." He's talking about all of you and all the talents you have inside each and every one of you. That being said, Pablo Picasso never met my family. Let me tell you a story about two failed artists I know very well. The first artist is me, and the second is my father. One afternoon, a few winters ago, I was getting restless and decided to try something I had never actually done before, to learn an instrument. I chose the ukulele because I've seen friends pick it up, watch a few YouTube videos, and in months they're playing their favorite songs by heart. I ordered one, opened the package, and started plucking away. I set myself a goal. I watched the videos, I read articles, and for a couple hours a week, I would practice. It helped pass the time and it was fun. Now fast forward to springtime, and some days I'd get home, open up some windows, and practice. Now I was not at the point where I could play a song all the way through. I was not playing Stairway to Heaven. I was not even playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I never got further than the first few notes, but for a little bit each day, it was fun. One day, I'll never forget it. I came home, it was really nice out, so I opened up the windows and started strumming away on my couch. I heard a neighbor next door very clearly say, "No, no, no, not this again." And he started closing his windows one after the other, very abruptly. Apparently, I had been torturing this poor guy for months. That's when I learned how bad I sounded. I felt really terrible about it, and I stopped playing it altogether. I quit. Now, around that same time, coincidentally, my dad too realized he needed a hobby to round out his day. He picked up painting, and by picked up, I mean he dove in head first. He ordered an easel, a crate of canvases, some oil paints, brushes, a beret, and he just really ran wild with it. One painting, sometimes two paintings a day. He spent hours doing it. My mother actually has to rearrange wall hangings a couple times a year to accommodate the ones he wants to permanently put up around the house. Now, let me be as polite about this as possible. My dad's art, his passion, what brings him peace and joy in his free time, is not really art. It's not good at all. To be fair, his art could belong in a cheap motel one day. Around the holidays, he'll wait for me to visit just to showcase his latest works from his blue period. They look purple to me, almost red. His triangle phase, they definitely don't look like triangles. And he's mass producing these things by the dozens. He's prolific. At this rate, we're probably going to need to start burying them in the yard when he goes to sleep. But absolutely nothing can get him to stop. Believe me, we've tried. Now, I don't have a musical bone in my body, and my dad is never going to hang one of his artworks at a museum. That's a fact. But you know, we enjoyed it immensely. We started something new that we always said we'd try to do, and in the case of my dad, kept trying to get better at it no matter what it looked like or what people thought out loud about it. Playing the instrument, volunteering your time, joining a club, playing a sport can and should be fun. It might not always feel that way, but it definitely should feel like you have to quit simply because you think you might never win the game or get the prize or take the cake. The act can be the outcome. The trip can actually be the destination. The enjoyment is the point. I think of how just 2 weeks ago, the Maine Steiners performed for us in the same room and reminded us so brilliantly, keep music in your daily life any way you can. I shouldn't have quit something I enjoyed so easily. My dad shouldn't have to either. Try something new, give it a shot. It really can develop into something you look forward to doing at the end of the day for a few minutes or a few hours. But if you join something that brings you little to no joy after you've given it your best effort, then look for something else. I'll trust you to trust your gut. You can quit something you don't enjoy, but you should never quit trying to find something you do. It's January 2020, a new month, a new year, a new decade. And if you're like me, you've already forgotten your New Year's resolution. But I've got a new one if you need it. Find one thing here at John Bapst, in your community or at home. Find one thing that you think sounds fun or that you want to learn and give it a try. It's out there, so just show up. So, in closing, When you go home tonight and someone asks you what today's assembly was about, I want you to tell them this. Some guy named Mr. Potato or Mr. Petito told me to try something new this year, and I'm thinking about it. And if you stop paying attention to everything I've said pretty early on, you can just tell Mr. Reeves talked about joining clubs or something. Good luck and have a great semester.